Beneath them, something shifted. And for the first time since Atlantis drowned, the ocean answered back. The ocean was silent, deceptively calm. There was no roar, no churning waves, no warning beyond the subtle thickening of the water beneath the vessel. Maya felt it immediately, an invisible force pressing against the hull, something patient, deliberate, aware. The crew froze, instruments flickering, sonar feeding distorted shapes.
Towers, streets, plazas, geometrically perfect, defying decay. Atlantis had not fallen, it had waited. As the submersible detached and descended, the water darkened in layers, swallowing the light from above. The city emerged slowly, like a dream half remembered. Glowing symbols traced the edges of towers, reflecting faintly on the hull. Streets stretched endlessly, untouched by time, frozen mid-motion. And the statues, human forms, stood perfectly still, eyes hollow yet alert. Not statues, people, preserved in a single eternal moment. Time itself seemed hesitant. Movements lagged. Voices echoed fractions too late. Maya's hand hovered in the water, and the city seemed to respond. Then came the whisper. Her name, Maya. The voice was everywhere and nowhere, not threatening, not welcoming, expectant. Maya's heart pounded as she watched the city from above. Every street, every plaza, every tower seemed to hold a story she could almost grasp but never fully understand. The deeper they descended, the more impossible it became to tell what was real. The submersible moved along a wide avenue. Symbols glimmered in rhythmic patterns, faintly pulsating like a heartbeat. The energy seemed alive, aware of their presence, shifting in reaction to their approach. As the sub hovered over a central plaza, memories flooded Maya's mind, memories that could not belong to her. She saw herself walking streets she had never visited, touching glowing walls that hummed with an energy she did not understand. Atlantis was not showing history, it was reminding her. It stored minds, experiences, identities. The pulse of the city matched her heartbeat. Symbols ignited across the towers, flowing toward a central point. Something moved beneath the streets, something enormous, slow, deliberate. The sub trembled. Maya pressed her hand against the glass. The city seemed to feel it, acknowledge it. The realization hit her like a blade. Atlantis had chosen her.
The sub drifted along narrower streets. Shadows shifted where none should exist. Light refracted in impossible angles. The deeper they moved, the more the air inside the sub felt thick, as though the water itself pressed down on their lungs. A soft vibration ran through the hull, subtle but undeniable. The crew murmured among themselves, but their words sounded hollow, distant. Maya noticed the statues again, figures of people frozen mid-step, some with expressions of awe, others of despair. Their eyes seemed to track them. She shivered, realizing these weren't preserved humans. They were echoes, impressions of what the city had absorbed, preserved, and perhaps judged.
The central energy core of the city revealed itself gradually. A wide plaza with an orb suspended in mid-water, symbols spiraling around it in hypnotic patterns. The orb pulsed like a heartbeat, each beat resonating through the sub, through Maya, through the very water around them. The captain tried to speak, but words faltered. Instruments went dark, lights flickered. A sensation of gravity, unnatural, oppressive, settled in. Atlantis was alive, watching, learning, calculating. Maya whispered under her breath, "We were never explorers. We were invited." Suddenly, the sub tilted, not from movement,
but from a pressure wave passing beneath it, originating from the city itself. Towers shifted imperceptibly, streets realigned. The energy pulsed faster, brighter, almost sentient. The crew gripped their controls, panicked, but Maya felt an odd calm. The city was communicating, not in words, but in sensation, in fear, in recognition. Atlantis had remembered. Atlantis had waited, and Atlantis had awakened. The sub hovered above the twisting streets of Atlantis, and the water around it seemed heavier now, as if the city itself was pressing down on the vessel. Every movement of the sub caused ripples that moved unnaturally, spreading in patterns that did not obey physics. Maya could feel the pulse of the city in her chest, slow at first, then accelerating, sinking with every flicker of light from the towers below. Shadows shifted under the streets, shapes gliding where no street or alley should exist. The crew's murmurs grew anxious, but the words seemed swallowed by the thick water and the oppressive presence of the city. Maya's eyes caught the glow of a massive plaza ahead, the energy core now thrumming with a rhythm that seemed alive, aware. Symbols spiraled outward, reaching into the water, into the sub, brushing against her mind with whispers of thoughts that weren't hers, memories that didn't belong to anyone. She saw fleeting visions, people walking the streets centuries ago, celebrating, arguing, watching the ocean in awe, yet trapped, preserved in the essence of the city. The realization hit her like a cold wave. Atlantis was not just a city. It was a sentient memory, a recorder of all who had dared to approach it, and it had absorbed them, judged them, stored them for eternity. A sudden tremor passed through the sub, subtle but undeniable, and Maya could feel the awareness of the city shifting its focus toward her. The statues lining the central plaza seemed to move, though their stone faces remained calm, eyes following her every motion. The crew whispered her name, but the echoes were faint, delayed, as if reality itself was bending around them. The deeper they moved toward the heart of the city, the more the architecture seemed to breathe, corridors elongating and contracting, towers leaning slightly as if to observe the intruders more closely. Maya realized that every step they took was anticipated, mapped and calculated by the city itself. She pressed her hand against the glass of the sub, feeling the faint vibration of the energy core, the hum of the city's consciousness resonating through her. She could hear whispers now, soft and fragmented, as if the city was trying to communicate through emotion rather than language. Each whisper carried centuries of knowledge, of warning, of pride and despair, and the weight of it threatened to crush her mind. The sub's lights flickered as the symbols accelerated their glow, the spiral of energy now faster, almost frantic, as though the city was reacting to their presence with urgency. A column of glowing water shot up from a distant street, illuminating shadows beneath the streets that writhed like living smoke, twisting into shapes that seemed to resemble humans, yet distorted, unnatural. The crew gripped their controls, panic rising, instruments failing, lights dimming. Maya felt a strange calm, a connection to the city that she could not explain, a sense that the city had chosen her, not for harm, but for understanding. Memories surged again, visions of Atlantis in its prime, proud, magnificent, thriving, and yet blind to the power it had unleashed. The orb in the central plaza pulsed violently, sending ripples of energy outward, and the water vibrated in rhythm with it. The sub tilted, corrected, and tilted again, as if the city were testing their resilience. Maya whispered to herself, "It remembers everything. It sees everything." And then she realized it was not just the city observing them. The ocean itself, the water above, the pressure, even the shadows, they were all part of Atlantis, extensions of its consciousness, its sentience, its judgment. There was no escape. Not yet, not until the city decided. And for the first time since they had entered, Maya felt the weight of eternity pressing down around her, knowing that every moment, every breath, every heartbeat was cataloged, absorbed, and remembered by the drowned city. Atlantis was awake,
and it was alive, and it was waiting for something.
The sub drifted deeper into Atlantis, past streets that bent impossibly, towers that leaned as if listening, and statues that subtly shifted their gazes with every movement.
The water itself hummed with energy, carrying whispers from centuries past, sounds of laughter, screams, and voices of those who had vanished when the city sank. Maya's mind ached with the influx of memories that were not hers, visions of rituals.
The city was alive, pulsating, calculating, and aware of each heartbeat inside the sub. The deeper they ventured, the more intense the energy became, rippling through the vessel, vibrating against metal, glass, and bone alike. Symbols across the buildings flared in rhythmic patterns, casting eerie lights across the streets below. Shadows moved in impossible ways, sliding along walls, vanishing and reappearing without warning, shapes resembling humans, yet distorted, like reflections of past sins. The crew became restless, instruments failing in sequences that made no sense, lights flickering in synchronization with the city's pulse.
Maya felt herself drawn toward the central core, as though her presence was required. She could hear voices now, faint, almost coherent, telling tales of pride, destruction, and the consequences of hubris. The orb in the main plaza pulsed faster, sending vibrations through the water, stirring the shadows beneath the city into writhing forms.
Streets shifted subtly as they passed, corridors elongating, arches bending, creating impossible angles. The sub tilted, resisted, and the city seemed to anticipate their every maneuver, as if testing their courage and resolve. Maya pressed her hands to the glass, feeling the cold, electrical hum of energy radiating from the orb, and for a fleeting moment, she glimpsed the original inhabitants of Atlantis, ghostly echoes moving in harmony with the energy, faces serene, proud, yet tragic. A sudden surge pushed the sub backward. The water around them thickened, restricting movement. Panic began to set in among the crew, but Maya remained strangely calm, sensing a connection she could not explain. The city had chosen her. The energy spirals converged toward the core, faster and brighter, and she understood that the city's consciousness had grown with the years, absorbing knowledge, emotion, and intent from every soul it had claimed. The shadows below twisted into recognizable forms, distorted echoes of the crew themselves, reflecting fears, regrets, and unresolved thoughts. The city was learning, cataloging, judging. Every heartbeat, every thought, every gesture of those who entered its domain was recorded, absorbed, and transformed into energy that powered the streets, the towers, the very water around them. Maya whispered, "It's alive. It's everything." The sub's lights dimmed, instruments failed entirely, and the orb blazed with radiant energy, flooding the city with illumination that seemed to pulse in sync with the collective fear and awe of those inside. The water trembled, a low hum resonating through the hull, as if the city itself had taken a deep, conscious breath. Shadows writhed, light bent, and the crew could feel the intelligence of Atlantis pressing against their minds, testing their limits, their courage, their very souls. The deeper they went, the more Maya understood. Atlantis had survived not merely as a city, but as a consciousness, a keeper of knowledge and power beyond comprehension. It was alive, aware, and it had waited, patient, eternal, and unyielding. There was no turning back. Every move forward was a step deeper into the city's mind, and every heartbeat tied them irrevocably to its will.
The sub hovered in the deepest heart of Atlantis, the water around them vibrating with a living rhythm, heavy and conscious. Every surface of the city glimmered with energy, symbols spiraling in patterns that defied logic, each pulse synchronized with the minds of the crew.
Shadows stretched impossibly, twisting into forms almost human, almost familiar, yet grotesque in ways that made Maya's skin crawl. The crew whispered, but their words were swallowed by the pulsing consciousness of the city.
The orb in the central plaza flared brightly, sending beams of light that seemed to probe their minds, extracting fears, desires, and memories.
Maya saw visions of Atlantis in its prime, streets bustling with life, grand ceremonies, citizens unaware of the power they had unleashed. The Sud shuddered violently as unseen forces shifted the water. Towers leaned, streets bent, shadows writhed. Time here did not exist. Past, present, and future coexisted, and the city saw everything.
The statues lining the plazas flickered with life, shadows of people who had walked these streets, echoing hubris, pride, joy, and despair. Crew panicked as lights failed and instruments died.
Energy spirals converged, faster and brighter, the water vibrating like a massive heartbeat. Shadows twisted into impossible forms, reflecting fears, regrets, and hidden thoughts.
The orb pulsed one final time, sending a wave that made the entire city shimmer, the water alive, conscious, omnipresent. Maya pressed her hand to the glass, whispering, "I understand. I see everything now." The sub hovered silently, trembling slightly. Atlantis had awakened fully, alive, aware, a sentient force, a memory of hubris and grandeur. The city stretched endlessly beneath them, each tower, street, and shadow alive, waiting, eternal and unyielding. Maya felt the weight of the city and ocean pressing down, the calm after an unimaginable storm.